Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From Stands College Football Show. We are now in double digits for the 2022 season. It is week number 10, and alongside me again for the 10th week in a row, we have Andy Hopper and Tom Scavetta. Andy, how's it going?
It is going great. The Illinois Fighting Illini are ranked number 16 in the college football playoff rankings, their first appearance in school history in the college football playoff rankings, hoping for more wins, and just that keeps rising. They're one of like 9 teams that actually has like a legit shot to make the college football playoff at this point of the season, which is just nuts. Also, want to give a shout out to Tulane and Oregon State, also making their first appearance in the college football playoff rankings, respectively. Little hot tip, guys, that I've heard: be on the lookout next week. College game day will either be at Tulane or in Champaign, Illinois, folks. It's one of the two. My sources are telling me that as long as Tulane and Illinois both win this week, College Game Day is taking a very serious look at making a trip to either of those schools. Whichever one it picks, it would be the first time College Game Day came to Champaign or down to New Orleans on Tulane's campus. But long story short, I'm feeling great. Let's beat the fuck out of Michigan State this week.
I will ask because I know you've got big games coming up, but who do you play next week if they were to go to you?
It'd be Purdue, so it actually would be a pretty important matchup in the Big Ten West. So we hope for a Purdue win this weekend and an Illinois this weekend to put some more intrigue into the matchup.
Okay, so I guess that means our teams will be fighting for that College Game Day.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll give it to you guys, or you play Michigan. I think the week after, so maybe they're holding off for that big old game right there. Tommy, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thanks again for having me, Brian. And a nice upset win over Syracuse that you and I both called last week. Predicted that. Really happy. Old school game. Run the football down their throats. Keep the dominant offense featured with Sean Tucker off the football field. And, this is a year of growing pains, but those pains have somewhat swelled away just a little bit this week. And I'm really excited for the show tonight and to discuss the future of Notre Dame football.
I love it. Yeah, another big matchup for you guys this week. You are on the card again. I'll jump quickly into our Week 9 recap. Andy, we'll start with you. What was the games that caught your eye?
I mean, I think what jumps out the most is it's Kansas State 48, Oklahoma State 0. No Adrian Martinez in this game for the Wildcats. And guys, we absolutely love to shit on Spencer Sanders on this show. I believe he got benched during this game because I don't know why the hell you wouldn't go to something else if you can't get anything done. But yeah, 48-0, that stood out to me. Also, Louisville with a huge win over Wake Forest, and it really wasn't close. I think I said on the show that Louisville had no chance because I'm usually wrong. And I'll shout out Brian's UCF, 25-21, a huge win over Cincinnati at home. Nice ranked win for the Knights. But yeah, those are 3 that really stuck out to me.
All right, what about you, Tom? Besides Notre Dame, of course.
Well, America's largest cocktail party. When I flew into Jacksonville on Friday night to see my family, the airport was infested with Florida and Georgia fans. It was a mob scene there. Georgia's win over Florida 42-20. I will say the Gators did make it a little bit interesting, forcing some Bulldog turnovers in that third quarter where they outscored Georgia 17-7. But they showed that Georgia can be vulnerable. Stetson Bennett, 2 interceptions. The Gators won the turnover battle 3-0, but still lost by 22 points, which is a shame. Tennessee's violent victory over Kentucky, 44-6, further proving why Hendon Hooker should win the Heisman. Jalen Hyatt might be the best receiver in college right now. 5 catches, 138 yards, and 2 tutties. Also, Will Levis with 3 interceptions. Where the hell did that come from? And then one, obviously, Andy mentioned Kansas State over Oklahoma State with Will Howard at quarterback. Our Spencer Sanders slander was justified after all. And then real quick on Notre Dame, I know I touched upon it in my first statement, but the defense had 4 sacks. I think Schrader got hurt in this game. They went to Carlos Del Rio Wilson. Looked a little better, but Notre Dame ran the ball all over the orange, kept the offense off the football field. They went against the optics, won this football game. And I want to shout out you guys and show a little humility towards both of you. This is the first time in the history of the show that Notre Dame has been the lowest ranked team out of our 3 fandoms.
I love it. Thank you for the recognition.
Yeah.
the big schools like you guys just stomping all over us.
Let's move on.
So we so we'll take it. Yeah, for me, I will, shout out UCF tiny bit here. We did get the ranked win. It looks nice. We're still a little bit disjointed, but you'll take it where you can get it. Notre Dame, Tom, I know you loved that I called that win. I did see little cracks there in Syracuse, and I just didn't like their squad as a whole going into that game. So it's a great win for you guys. Like you said, still growing pains. It's a process, but you're showing that you can still get the wins against big teams. Well, maybe not a big team, but a ranked team at the very least at this point in the season. And then USC narrowly escaping Arizona, 45-37. So that was a little bit scary for them. They're still in the top 10. Hang on by a thread there if they want to get into the college football playoff. Not sure it's going to happen, especially when you're letting games go that closely. And then you guys brought it up, Tennessee destroying Kentucky. Will Levis just had a terrible day. Tennessee was all over him. Tennessee looks so good, and yeah, I do think that they deserve that number 1 spot at this point in time. Which, speaking of, we will get into our next segment, which is CFP reactions here, boys. It is the first rankings, week 10 here of the college football playoff. The committee has gathered, switched things around a little bit. Georgia was number 1 in the AP. Tennessee takes that spot for them at number 1. I want to know from you guys, what are your surprises? Who got a little bit disrespected? Who's overranked, underranked? Those sorts of things, because usually we trash on the committee a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of it. So first rankings of the 2022 season. Tom, what you got on this? Who do you like, and what don't you like about it?
I think Tennessee is justified as the number 1 team. I really do. They beat Alabama, did they not? Very impressive win. They deserve it. They haven't played Georgia yet. I would, again, I'm not biased towards the SEC because I'm not an SEC fan. But in the top 7, I see 3 SEC teams. I think the second-ranked SEC team in Georgia should be above Ohio State. That's my opinion. Ooh. I think Ohio State looked suspect against Notre Dame in week 1. Again, that was week 1, and they've won every game since. But I would put Georgia above Ohio State, especially if you have Georgia as 8.5-point favorites, whatever the hell it is this week at home against Tennessee. I would switch that, and I would put Michigan over Clemson. I hate to say it. I would put Michigan over Clemson. Again, even though Clemson is undefeated, I think the 3 of us could agree we're not really appalled by the way Clemson has played this year in a positive way. I don't see them holding on as the 4. I do think Michigan has a better shot than Clemson does. But other than that, I like it. I think Alabama is justified as number 6. I like TCU at number 7 because, again, they've won against ranked teams, but they have to continue to win, right? They haven't been this high up in a while. So I think out of 1 through 7, the 2 changes I would make is Georgia over Ohio State, flip-flop those 2, and then flip-flop Clemson and Michigan.
All right, what about you, Andy?
Yeah, Clemson at 4 is fucking fraudulent as fuck. Excuse my language there, but I do not believe they're the 4th best team in the country. I believe Tom is correct. I would put Michigan there. I can see the argument as well that Tom made that Georgia over Ohio State. I think that's pretty valid as well. I'm going to be a homer and say Illinois should be higher than 16. I'm looking at the rankings here, and there's 4 teams with 2 losses ranked ahead of them. I don't know. I don't know that Penn State, Utah, and Kansas State are all better than Illinois at the moment. But I'm just happy to be here. We'll put it that way. I don't want to be too negative, but I think Illinois could be as high as 13. We'll see. Go out and prove it on Saturday, and hopefully move up in the rankings. Other than that, I think that was really my only gripe. Oh, Texas at 5-3 at number 24 is a fucking joke too. They are not the 24th best team in the country. Yeah, other than that, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask about Texas, but I think you made your thoughts pretty clear there. I'm one of those people. I mean, their 3rd loss was bad, and I think that probably should scoot them out of it. But I'm still kind of on that train where it's like a with Ewers, without Ewers situation, where it's 2 different teams. So, I mean, I guess it's fine. Because like I just said before we started the show, I'm not so sure UCF should even be ranked. So clearly, after, that 22-23 spot, I mean, I guess it's just slim pickings, and they got to throw somebody in there. As far as Michigan at 5, well, I'll start with this. I think Clemson should be down at 7, and you move those other 3 teams below them up. And I think the reason maybe that Michigan is at 5 here is it would look ridiculous to the non-SEC Big Ten fans if your 1, 2, 3, 4 was SEC Big Ten, SEC Big Ten. That doesn't bode well. I don't think people would want a playoff. I mean, someone's got to lose, obviously, but when you got to look at those rankings for the next 4 or 5 weeks, where it's just SEC and Big Ten teams only, I don't think that's what they want for marketing purposes, I should say. And then Kansas State, I think I bumped them up a little bit, and Illinois as well. Like Andy said, how many 2-loss teams do we need ahead of them? I think Penn State you can drop below. Utah you can drop below at the very least. Kansas State does look good, so I think 14th spot would have looked good for Illinois. But like Andy said, just happy to be there. So it's a start. It's a start, boys.
Absolutely.
And we'll wrap that up and move into our new segment of the week, which is Tunnel Vision. Everyone has seen the footage, I'm sure, at this point of the Michigan State. I don't want to call it a brawl because it's a little bit one-sided here. Michigan State players gang attacking 2 Michigan players, I believe it was, once at the entrance at the locker room and one in the hallway of the tunnel with helmets. So Tom, I'll start with you because I know you don't like Michigan, but it's a little bit one-sided here in this situation. The tunnel gets a lot of gripe. What do you think should be done with what's going on? This is twice in 3 weeks now that there's been what I'll call altercations in this singular tunnel that both teams have to go down?
What should be done? Grow up. That's what should be done. Look, I get it. Michigan won 29-7. I think 8 players have been suspended for the Spartans at this point. I think 4 more got suspended yesterday or something like that. So the total is now at 8. I don't care if Michigan did anything to instigate this. I don't care. Mel Tucker needs to better control his team. The actions by these players were inexcusable. The big house was built a century ago, guys. Why are we talking about this now? We know there's a single entrance. We know there's a single exit. So what? I get it. Second incident in 3 weeks. Maybe it is time for a change. I don't know. But you can't just reconstruct the thing mid-season. So the simple answer to that, Brian, nicely, is to grow up. Especially, and I'm going to call out names here because I don't care. Angelo Gross, Zion Young, Atavion Brown, Kerry Crump, attacking Michigan defensive back Jaden McBurrows. Freshman cornerback Malcolm Jones really acted like a freshman this week, more like a high school player. Redshirt junior cornerback Justin White. A senior acting like a child in Jacoby Windman. He'll never see the NFL after that. Senior defensive end, again, another child. Brandon Wright, also suspended. Grow the fluff up. Build a second tunnel? Really? Is that going to resolve anything? It could short term, but I mean, these things are bound to happen all the time. It's maturity, guys. I mean, this wasn't an issue last year, was it? How about the year before that? To this level, to this extent, BS.
What about you,
Jim
Andy?
Harbaugh's right. I never thought I'd be sitting here defending Michigan like this, but here I am, week 10 of the college football season, defending Jim Harbaugh.
What about you, Andy? Like Tom said, this is a very old stadium. This is the first time it's ever been an issue that I can remember. So, what are your thoughts on this whole scuffle?
I mean, Tom with the scolding of a lifetime. How about I want to give him an award for that. I mean, he's right. You do have to grow up. There's parts of this that just confuse me. Obviously, it is an old stadium. That does explain the tunnel. After the first incident, can we not at least stagger these teams going in? Like, they don't have to be going in at the same time. Let's not forget how heated this rivalry is and how much they don't like each other. We know they were talking shit on the field. We know this spills over. I'm not trying to excuse it at all because it's not right. But I think there were things that could have been done to prevent this from happening. I don't know why there was just one Michigan guy by himself in the tunnel, surrounded by all those Spartans. That didn't seem like a very smart move. But I mean, getting the other guy outside of the locker room, it's all inexcusable. I'm not for jumping anybody. I understand how old the stadium is, and they've been doing it this way forever. But 2 incidents in one season, and I know this wasn't. This wasn't Michigan, a bunch of Michigan players getting suspended. This was mostly Spartans just beating the shit out of this guy. It was not a great video, not a good visual for the team, for the university, I don't know. But My thoughts, I guess, construct another tunnel, figure out a way, send the away team in first, or send the losing team in the tunnel first, keep the winning team on the field for, a couple extra minutes. I mean, it is, at the end of the day, it comes down to player safety, and I don't know. It's just a black eye on everyone, and just not something you want happening. We all get fired up. We're all super passionate about the game, and I mean, especially the players on the field. And it hurts when you go to your rival's stadium and you don't get it done. So, but I mean, that doesn't excuse jumping a member of the opposing team, rivalry or not. But yeah, I think Tom made some good points. You got to grow up. But I also think there were things that could have been done to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the situation has evolved post brawl or scuffle, with all the statements and seeing the videos. ESPN came out with I don't even know why they were running, but they had a sort of a hidden cam that was just set up in the corner that had the very end of the tunnel. They came out days after, and I don't know. To me, I think more embarrassing even than the players from Michigan State has been the fan base. When I was trying to decide, it was pretty easy to decide what news segment we were going to do, because this was kind of the talk of the town. But when I was kind of looking through the Twitter threads, because I wanted to see all the, reporter videos who were in the interview room where that, jumping basically happened, Michigan State fans tried to push the blame because of a singular video of Jamon Green walking through the tunnel, talking a little bit of shit. Who cares? That's going on 60 minutes prior to the game. That's going on for the 60 minutes that the game is happening. That happens after every single game. This is an in-state rivalry. This isn't some new thing where, some guy said some naughty words, let's beat the shit out of him 10-on-1. So, I mean, at this point, from what I heard, the one player, I think the one that was hit with the helmets, which was Green, he's got an attorney now. So they're going for either civil or criminal charges at this point. So this is now beyond even suspensions. And, I haven't seen a statement from the Big Ten that's been sort of a stricken down, this is what's going to happen. These players are done for the season. It seems to be only from the school and Mel Tucker so far, the announcements I've seen. So I think the Big Ten needs to get on top of this. Michigan, I'm not going to say there's any blame on them, but yeah, like Andy said, stagger them by a minute or two. Why do we have to? Kindergartens come up with rules quicker than this, to how to deal with stupid situations with kids fighting. One team goes in, give them 2 minutes, wave to the fans, do whatever. Next team goes in when the other one's not in the hall. So just a really weird situation. And I don't know how they didn't see it coming, escalating to this point after what happened against, what was it, Penn State, I think was the other team that this happened to before. So, I mean, writing was on the wall. I don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, maybe we'll see a split tunnel, some construction going on after the season. But middle of the season, they should have had this sorted out. Instead, now, Michigan State embarrasses themselves, and they got eight suspensions on the card. So, shame for them that they're all so childish. But that will move us onto our shots and chasers. No Michigan team on the slate this week. At noon, we start off with ranked TCU. We talked about them maybe being ranked a little too low in this first CFP ranking, taking on Texas Tech, who's been hit or miss this season, but they have had some good games against good opponents. Tom, we'll start with you. Does TCU keep rolling?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Have we seen Max Duggan this year on the field? Man is a stud. That's a future NFL quarterback right there. Look at what he's done for the Horned Frogs. When was the last time they were even in the discussion? I can't remember. Can you guys remember? Because I can't.
I do know, only because in my notes, 2011, ranked number 2, won the Rose Bowl thing. So it's been a while.
That was Andy Dalton, right?
I believe
it
so.
was, I think. Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Kendre Miller is a beast in the backfield. He loves to feast. 11 touchdown rushes on the season. And Quentin Johnson is a really good receiver for them. I like him a lot. They've beaten 4 ranked opponents over the past 5 weeks. They will easily get past Texas Tech. Their defense, though, the Horned Frogs, has been challenged the last few weeks. I think Red Raiders quarterback Donovan Smith could pose some matchup problems, but as long as they stop Taj Brooks and SaRodorick Thompson on the ground, I think they should be okay. I mean, the only defensive player of note that I think is NFL caliber right now for the Red Raiders is Tyreek Wilson. Man has 6 sacks on the season, and he's good at finding those A-gap blitzes and getting home to the quarterback. That's something that will be key for them to have any shot in this game. That spread is 8.5 points. Take it. Max Duggan throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes.
All right, Andy?
I think he adds 50 yards and another score on the ground. Duggan can do it with his arm. He can do it with his legs as well. I think Tom's absolutely right. We're watching a future NFL quarterback. So he will get a shot somewhere on Sundays for sure, especially if he keeps the Horned Frogs winning. And I do think they win this game. I don't think the Red Raiders keep it close. Obviously, it's two Texas schools. There's history there. There's a rivalry there. Everything's bigger in Texas. And TCU's score is going to be bigger than Texas Tech's score on Saturday. Take the over. Big 12 defense is going up against each other. Tom mentioned it. TCU's defense has been put through quite a few challenges the past couple weeks. We'll see how they respond, but I like them. I like them to cover that 8.5 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going TCU as well, pretty easily. But like I said, Texas Tech has just been such a weird team. They get blown out by a struggling Baylor, but they've beaten ranked Houston, ranked Texas, and they kept it close with Kansas State, who we all just talked about in the rankings. They're looking really good, and they kept it pretty close with Oklahoma State as well. So I guess it's a situation of which Texas Tech are we going to get here. But I mean, players aside, TCU needs to turn up the heat. I think they're better in every skill position, but like we just said, they're ranked down at number 7. Obviously, they need to keep winning. They need to hope for other teams to lose, but this is now a situation of, we're going to see all these old guys in a room saying, oh, do they pass the eye test? So TCU not only needs to win, but they need to win and look good doing it. So even at their undefeated 8-0 record, even with 4 ranked wins in a row against Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and I think Kansas State was the 4th one, even though they've gone on the road for their out-of-conference games that they scheduled and won all those, they're still down at number 7. So that being said, the problem that I do see for Texas Tech and why they're going to lose this game, they still look really disjointed. They've got some offensive production, but they've been using 3 starting quarterbacks. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know who they can trust at this point. And they have the least efficient passing game in all of college football. That is not how you keep up with a team that's going to score on you a lot like TCU. TCU's going to put points up on the board. You need someone that you can trust at quarterback who can make those throws. Instead, they're throwing interceptions. They've got 15 interceptions, and the O-line isn't really helping them that much at all. They've been sacked. They've allowed the QBs to be sacked 30 times, which is tied for the most in all of college football. They got sacked, I think, 6 times last week, so it's not going to be very pretty. So for me, TCU, easy pick here. Although we said the same thing like Andy said about Louisville not having a chance last weekend, look what happened. So maybe we'll get a good game on our hands. In the noon slot, in our chaser slot, we have Army taking on Air Force. For me, this has become my personal favorite Commander-in-Chief matchup here because of what happened in 2018 when Army tried to kidnap Aurora the Falcon and hurt the wing of that beautiful bird. Did make a full recovery, but I'm sure Air Force has not forgotten. Tom, we'll start with you. 2 option teams here. Probably pretty low scoring. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, Air Force is led by a dominant running back in Brad Roberts, who has 13 touchdowns on the season. The man averages 5.5 yards per carry. He's an absolute stud. I like him a lot. 943 rushing yards on the season. They also have John Lee Eldridge III, which I like, another running back over 500 rushing yards. Again, they don't throw. Their leading receiver has 7 catches on the season. They're averaging 336 rushing yards per game. Army is averaging 334 rushing yards per game. They're led by quarterbacks Tyheer Taylor and Jamel Jones, 11 combined rushing touchdowns. Shout out to my good buddy. I know one really super Army fan that I know. His name is Gabe Flayton. He lives about 10 minutes away from West Point. He will be watching this game. Unfortunately, he will also be watching an Army loss. Give me the Air Force Falcons.
You talked him up and then you hit him with the loss. Andy, who you got in this game?
Yeah, I hope you guys like running the football and pounding the rock because that is all we are about to see on Saturday. Air Force only averaging 82.4 passing yards a game to Army's 97.1. Both teams going for 330 plus rush yards a game. So Service Academy unders are just an absolute must bet every time they match up. And it is a cool style of football to watch. Sometimes, my high school ran the wing tee. We did get pretty tired of not passing the ball ever. But if it works, it works. But we see a 7-point spread here. I think Army keeps it closer than that, but I think Air Force wins the game.
Yeah, for me, I'm going Air Force as well. I think they're the better team, but also I don't think I can root for Army in this matchup ever because of what they did to Aurora. Um, but yeah, the over under here is at 40. I think it's gone up a tiny bit to 40.5. It's fluctuating a little bit, but if it does stay at 40, that will make it the lowest over under of the entire weekend. Two other games do have 40.5, but 40 would keep this at the lowest. Like I said, both teams running the option. The clock is just going to keep running. This game might be over before you can eat a Subway footlong. Um, I genuinely think this game might be over, and we might be at like 2 minutes into the third of the TCU Texas Tech game. That is how fast this game is going to run. But yeah, as far as the teams go, besides UMass, who is just probably the worst team in all of college football, these teams are the only other two teams in the nation that average less than 100 passing yards per game. Like Andy said, both under, I think, about 95. Army a little bit higher, but not great there. It's Spencer Petras type numbers there. On the other side of the offense, top two rushing teams in the nation. Air Force leads the nation with 336 rushing yards per game. Army just a little bit behind them. But Air Force has rushed for 400 plus yards 4 times already this season. And when they do, they are 4-0 in those games. So that will be the mark that I'm looking for. I don't think Army's defense is good enough to keep them under that mark. If they hit it, I think Air Force stays on top and gets the win in this game. Justice for Aurora. 3:30 slot. We have the biggest matchup of all time for Tennessee, perhaps. The biggest matchup of the week. We have number 1 Tennessee taking on number 3 Georgia. Tom, we'll start with you. Who takes this in what might be the most exciting game of the year?
All right. So Georgia favored by 8 at home. Both teams are 8-0. This is 1 against 3 in the CFP rankings. Whoever loses this game probably drops out for right now. Now, Georgia, we know what they're built off: a dominant running game and a stout defense. They give up just 10.5 points per game. Their defense has not allowed more than 22 points in any game this season. They're led by a really smart veteran quarterback in Stetson Bennett. Only 9 touchdown passes on the season, but he hasn't had to rely on his arm that much. Dijon Edwards with 7 rushing touchdowns, Kenny McIntosh, 6 rushing touchdowns, and Brock Bowers, tight end of the future for the Dogs. I know he'll be back next year as a junior. Chris Smith has matured nicely, 2 interceptions on the season, really good press man coverage abilities. And then we go to the other side. The 2022 Heisman Trophy winner and Hendon Hooker, yes, you heard what I said, has over 2,300 passing yards on the season, just 1 interception, 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Again, another team, they're more well-balanced offensively, in my opinion, right? You have Jalen Hyatt, who's a stud, 14 scores. Good luck stopping that. The man averages 20 yards per catch. Defensively, I like Byron Young. I like Trayvon Flowers. But Tennessee's defense is vulnerable. That's the difference of this game. They're vulnerable. They say when in doubt, take the better quarterback. But Georgia has the better head coach. They're at home. They're going to find a way to win this game and unfortunately hand Tennessee their first loss of the season. It breaks my heart to say that. But Tennessee's too new to the situation as of recent years. And for me, it's hard to bet against the Georgia Bulldogs here.
All right, Andy, are the defending national champs going to take down Tennessee, or is Tennessee going to have their moment here?
I really, really want the Volunteers to have their moment. I do. But I think Tom's right. I am a little nervous about them stopping the Bulldogs on offense. I believe in Hendon Hooker. I mean, like you said, Jalen Hill has been incredible, averaging over 20 yards a catch. Seems like every time he gets the ball, he scores a touchdown. He's going to have to do a lot of that again against this stout Bulldogs defense. But, so the line doesn't really make sense to me. I think 8 is a lot of points, but I know the public is like all over Tennessee. So this feels like one that Vegas needs this one because there's like 80 or 90% of the money is on Tennessee to cover the spread. So Georgia at home, 230 between the hedges. Fuck. So here's why I'm a little nervous because, okay, obviously Tennessee beat Alabama, but that was at home, and that took them down to the very last second with a kick that probably shouldn't have gone in, somehow went in. Not trying to take anything away from them. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that they're the number 1 team right now. Weird to see a number 1 team be 8-point underdogs in a game, but I'm going to go with Georgia. Georgia wins.
All right. Yeah, you guys aren't lying. This is a tough one to call. Last week we were looking at a Georgia team that was ranked number 1. So despite the fact that they're at number 3, this is clearly a very good team. They've got a lot of production that came back from last year. But now this week, the committee they took a look and they flipped the script on us. Tennessee has that number 1 spot, and I mean, we said earlier, I think most of us said that they're deserving of that number 1 spot right now. So as far as the matchup goes, the fact that they're 8-point dogs, which the opening line was 12, which, I mean, had I known that, I would have jumped all over that. I think that's probably why, like Andy said, it is like 87 or 90% of the money is on Tennessee. That's probably why. Giving 12 points to Tennessee in a matchup like this, with the way they've been scoring, yeah, Vegas just didn't trust Tennessee, and I think they're going to get hurt on it this week because it's still a lot of points. But yeah, as far as players go, you guys, hit all the heavy hitters. Jalen Hyatt, slow week from him last week. Am I right? Only 5 receptions for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they're
slow week.
Yeah, it's just rookie numbers from him. But no, I think he's going to have a phenomenal week. Georgia's secondary is very good, but he's so hard to mark. And like Andy said, every time he catches the ball, you might be chasing him into the end zone. So obviously he's someone that Hendon Hooker can just launch the ball up there, and even if it's just a hope and a prayer, you can rely on Hyatt there. Yes, Tennessee's offense allows a lot of yards, particularly through the air. But when you throw Stetson Bennett into the mix here, I think I don't rank him as lowly as some of these other quarterbacks that, like our Pines, who are trustworthy. They've got the seniority, they've got the team behind them. I still don't think his skill set is good enough. It's definitely nowhere near what Hendon Hooker's is. So the QB matchup here for me is just a huge advantage for Tennessee. I think we're going to see a heavy reliance on the tight ends from Georgia here. Didn't get to read into it too much, but all the analysts are saying that Tennessee's biggest crack in the armor is their ability to defend tight ends. Even if you double up on Brock Bowers, keep someone tight on him all game, they got another one. Clutch tight end, Darnell Washington. Probably not as good as Brock Bowers, not as quick as Brock Bowers, but he's someone who you can rely on if they are able to take Bowers out of the game. Maybe he gets hurt. Darnell Washington is still there to pick up the pieces. Vols secondary gets a lot of flack. But last week, they kept Will Levis to just 98 yards. He's really high on draft boards. He's obviously a better QB. Then Stetson Bennett picked him off 3 times. So the secondary can't show up. They're getting a lot of flack, but they can show up. So I don't know. I went with the Notre Dame upset last week. I think I'm going to go with the Tennessee upset this week because I'm all on the Rocky Top train this season. I love what they're doing as a team. Heupel's really got them rolling. So I'm picking the Vols here to keep on rolling. And we should note, you guys, I can't remember who it was, but someone talked about the CFP implications. The loser of this game is probably 100% out because both these teams are in the East. You lose this head-to-head matchup, you're probably done. So this is a massive, massive game.
It's a loser leaves town game. That's what it is.
So this is definitely one to watch if everyone has tuned into the games at 3:30. Then in our chaser slot, we have UAB versus UTSA. This was a really fun big game last season as UTSA went on a run. Both teams not as good this season, but they've returned most of their players. It was slim pickings for good games this week, so they are our chaser. Tom, we'll start with you. Who takes this game?
The line is even. When I look at the Blazers, recent memory tells you they're struggling. 2-game losing streak. I do think they have the slightly better defense. Dylan Hopkins, not super impressive, but Dwayne McBride, over 1,100 rushing yards on the season and 12 touchdowns. He's the bread and butter of that offense. Trey Schroschfire, 450 receiving yards on the season. Can safety Grayson cash in with those 3 interceptions? I think he might. I mean, that defense leans on him. Mac McWilliams, 10 passes defended. Also 10 passes defended for Starling Thomas V. Good pair of corners. But here's my problem. UTSA is 4-0 in conference play this season. They haven't lost yet. Those are road runners. They gave Houston a challenge. They brought them to triple OT. As I mentioned, since the loss to Texas, 5-game winning streak. Frank Harris, better quarterback in my opinion. Brendan Brady, solid running back. I like how he runs between the tackles. He has a good eye for the football. Ja'Cory Clark is an interesting receiver. I'm not in love with his hands, but I love his speed. 8 touchdowns on the season, and you add Josh Cephas and the touchdown maker Zachary Franklin to the list, that's a tough offense to stop. The optics say to go with UTSA, and that is why I'm taking UAB in an upset at home.
Wow, you actually had me there. I like that one. Andy, who's your pick here?
So everybody knows how adamant I was about the Roadrunners last year. They were my guys. This year, obviously, they returned Frank Harris. They returned Cephas. Some other guys as well. I mean, they're averaging 504 total yards, total yards per game on offense. 330 of those coming through the air. We're seeing two really different offenses here. As in the Roadrunners really like to emphasize the pass. The Blazers are going to try to run the ball down your throat, averaging 246.5 rush yards per game. That's good for 8th in the country. When I look at this game, I don't know. I feel like these are two fairly even teams. Despite their records, you have a 6-2 UTSA team and a 4-4 UAB, but UAB at home, looking to bounce back. Roadrunners. I want to go against Tom. We have to do it at least once a show.
Love it. Yeah, it's two porous defenses, but two pretty high-powered offenses on each side here. Like I said, this isn't as notable as last year's game, where UTSA was on. I think they were like 10-0 at this point when they matched up here with UAB, ranked nationally, won the game on a touchdown with like 3 or 4 seconds left. It was an incredible game. And yeah, its spread is even. Andy, like you just said, had trouble picking because it is so even across the board. They returned a lot of talent. Both QBs back, Frank Harris and Dylan Hopkins. Dwayne McBride's back for UAB. But the notable loss is Sincere McCormick. He went to the draft last year, so he's no longer there. They do replace him with Brendan Brady, who has been doing pretty well, but not as productive as McCormick, who I will note, incredible name, Sincere McCormick. But yeah, for me, it is so close. But UAB, they've done pretty well keeping points off the board. But the last 2 games where they faced, a similar quarterback to Frank Harris, I should say, who can throw the ball, they've lost. So, yeah, I think I have to give the slight edge here to UTSA, despite the fact that a lot of people seem to be on that UAB line there. What was it? Yeah, 62% for the ESPN FPI for UAB to lose this game. They're 4-4. I don't know. For me, I see the edge with the Roadrunners, so I'm sticking with UTSA. Moving to 7:30, we have a top 10 matchup, LSU versus Alabama. Tom, did the committee do a little bit of trickery here, moving LSU up to number 10 to get a top 10 matchup here? Are they going to sneak one out, and that ranking is justified here?
Committee is not tricking because they're led by an outstanding head coach in Brian Kelly. I don't care what people have to say about this man. He is an outstanding college football coach, and we all know this. Again, going from the G5 to an independent school to an SEC school, LSU is here to compete. They're 13.5-point underdogs at home, trying to avoid their 3rd loss of the season. They're going up against the Bryce Young-led offense. The Bama defense, though, is probably the biggest problem, right? Only 16 points per game allowed this year. They already hold that one tough loss to Tennessee. The Crimson Tide have. If Bama has any chance of even thinking about a playoff berth, they need to blow the ropes off of the Tigers. Jahmyr Gibbs, great player, future pro. Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton, and Trayshawn Holden all cause matchup problems for that LSU defense. Remember, they don't have. Again, I know Stingley didn't play last year, but they lost other guys in that secondary, like Cordell Flott. Kool-Aid McKinstry, that's a player to watch in this game. He's going up against Malik Neighbors, a guy who has done good things for the Tigers this year. Will Anderson Jr., he's kind of had a quiet year, don't you guys think?
Yeah.
He still played very, very well. He has 6 sacks, but I feel like a lot of people were expecting monstrous numbers, but we got good numbers, Jaden Daniels, I'm not sold on him yet. He is really good running the football, though, the dual threat. And LSU relies on a complementary backfield featuring 3 running backs with at least 4 touchdown rushes. And my favorite player on LSU, B.J. Ojolari, with 4 sacks on the season. He'll be sacking Bryce Young once on Saturday. But, damn it. Fortunately, I have to pick Alabama. Brian Kelly's track record against Alabama is not good. In fact, his track record against, top 5 opponents is terrible. So I just can't do it. I'm picking the Crimson Tide, but don't get me wrong. I'm rooting hardcore for LSU to win this football game.
All right, Andy?
Yeah, I think hard to top what Tom put together there. I do think the committee did know what they were doing, putting LSU at 10. I think it is justified. They have been playing pretty well as of late, so we'll give them that. but I mean, they're absolutely trying to juice up the ratings. They know this is a huge matchup. Whether LSU wins or Alabama wins, I don't think LSU is going to win. I think Alabama is going to roll over them because they absolutely need it to stay alive. Um, and I don't know if Jaden Daniels has it in him to go up against this, this caliber of a team and come out and get a victory. We'll see how the defense on LSU's defense holds up. I think Ojulari is going to have to get to the quarterback and make Bryce Young feel uncomfortable and hopefully disrupt, some of the chemistry and some plays, some passes here, because we know Alabama is always always capable of hitting you with a big play and seemingly just taking all the wind out of you. It always feels like as soon as the game starts in some of these situations. But I'm taking the Tide here. I'm not this sold on LSU in year one of Kelly's tenure.
Yeah, I love this matchup every year, even when LSU, isn't ranked, which is, kind of been the common theme for the last couple of years, as they've struggled a bit. But yeah, they looked pretty good recently. They were on and off at the start of the season, but they've got things together under Brian Kelly. They've settled in. They kept a high-powered Ole Miss offense to just 20 points last week. Quinshawn Judkins, the running back, who I'm very high on at Ole Miss, they kept him to 111 yards on the ground, which that seems kind of high, but for him, that's been low based on what he's done this season. He's an animal, but the question is, can they do the same to stop Jahmyr Gibbs, who is an even bigger animal, a beast, some might say. To me, his footwork is the best in all of college football. I know Andy got mad when I said he was the best a few weeks ago. Didn't want to shit on Chase Brown. But yeah, in terms of decision making and just the cuts that he can make and how quick he is, Jahmyr Gibbs is just another level. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can handle him in the ground game. And then, like you said, Jaden Daniels, not only is he good at rushing, he led the entire team last week in rushing, 121 yards on the ground and 3 rushing touchdowns. So this is kind of the most, I'll say, undisciplined Alabama defense, it feels like, in the last couple of years. Tom, you said it. Will Anderson has been quiet. He's not having a bad season, but he's not, I don't think, anywhere near where we would thought he would have been coming into the season. So the defense is quiet. They've got more holes than a typical Alabama defense. So maybe this is a situation where a running quarterback can eat them up. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I still think Alabama is the better team here, which is why I'm going to pick them. I know I also like Ojulari, even if he is getting to Bryce Young, even if other LSU D-line are getting to Bryce Young, he's one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the entire college football. I don't know if maybe he's taken 1 or 2 bad sacks this entire year. The rest, he's done so well to escape the pressure. So I am sticking with Alabama, but I think, like both of you guys, probably rooting for LSU in this game. Because I'll root for Kelly. You know what? I'll say it. Despite the bad accent at the basketball game, I am rooting for him, and I like the LSU program. So hoping for a Tigers win, but going with Alabama. And then in our 7:30 slot, we have a team that Tom knows very well here, Notre Dame. Another ranked matchup against another orange team in our fall slate here. Tom, we'll start with you. Is your team pulling off another upset against the Clemson Tigers?
It was around 2 years ago at this time that happened, right? And everyone was going crazy because, they were going up against DJ in South Bend. He didn't have the best game. Andy went on a ridiculous rant on Review and Preview at Kyle Russo saying, can they stop Kyron Williams? No. So here's my thing, right? You look at Clemson's last 2 games, they've won by 6 points in each of them against Syracuse and Florida State. That's not that impressive. Clemson beat Syracuse 27-21 at home. Notre Dame beat Syracuse 41-24 on the road. That should tell you something between a common opponent. But here's the problem. You can't do that if you're an analyst. You have to base it off of how these teams match up against each other. I mean, you can't just solely weigh the matchup off of common opponents. That's a huge mistake a lot of people, bettors, fans make all the time. DJ, again, he's gotten a little better throughout the course of the season, but last week, 2 weeks ago before the bye, he had his worst game of the season. Threw for the least amount of passing yards, not even 200 passing yards. At a college level, that's not good. Again, Will Shipley is the identity of that offense. If you could stop Will Shipley, you have a shot to win this game. JD Bertrand and Jack Kaiser have been playing very, very well. Isaiah Foskey and Riley Mills also have been playing very, very well. My concern is the coverage of the tight ends and Davis Allen and Jake Brenningstool. They've combined for 7 touchdowns on the season, and their defense is still scary. You got Miles Murphy, 5.5 sacks, Tyler Davis with 4. Those are 2 guys Notre Dame's younger offensive line needs to account for. Luckily, there is a senior, that center Jarrett Patterson, anchoring the shift. Actually, he's moved to left guard now. Zeke Carell is the new center on the team this year. You got Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, solid, bookend tackles that are improving, even though they're young. And then Notre Dame overall as a cohesive unit is playing better. I think that Marshall loss humbled them a lot. Again, it wasn't good when they lost to Stanford a couple weeks ago, but they came back with a win against Syracuse. Clemson's had 2 weeks to think about this, but did you guys see Audric Estime run last week? The man was insane. 558 yards, 8 touchdown rushes on the season. He's a mini Brandon Jacobs. The only legitimate receiving threat, though, for Notre Dame, you all know who it is. It's tight end Mike Mayer. You take away Mayer, Notre Dame's going to have trouble scoring points on you. But the playmaker for me is Brandon Joseph. Last week, Brandon Joseph set the tone in that Syracuse game with a pick 6 off of Garrett Schrader on the first play. I do not trust DJ Ukulele, however you say his name, going up against Al Golden's defense. I don't trust it. And I'm looking at the rest of Clemson's schedule. Don't we all agree? We all expect them to slip at some point. No? I mean, they're in the ACC. They're slipping this week. They can't win in South Bend for some reason. I get it. It's 8-0 against 5-3, but they're a road team that's only favored by 3.5 points, and they're the 4th-ranked team in the college football playoff. Something is not right, guys. Something is honestly not right. Irish by a field goal.
All right, Andy?
I mean, I said it earlier. I said Clemson, they're frauds. Absolute frauds. We'll see if the Irish can prove me right this weekend. I'm interested to see how Pine is going to play against this stout Clemson defense. I mean, talked about Breeze on the defensive line and what he's been able to do leading that group. That just it seems like another one of those Clemson D lines that has 4 draft picks on it. So that we'll see how obviously Pine responds. We'll see if the offensive line from Notre Dame can hold up, if they're able to get the ball to Mike Mayer or not. I mean, for me, for Clemson, I want to see Klubnik, dude. Bring in the freshman. I know Ugalele really hasn't been – his season as a whole has been, relatively solid. I know he's another one of those quarterbacks that we give a hard time, on this show. But I guess, Tom, I will throw it back to the last time he played you guys in South Bend. It was a victory for Notre Dame, correct? History repeats itself. Do we see that again on Saturday? My only concern is it just feels like a lot, like for Notre Dame to win this game, like I don't want to say everything has to go perfect, but like a lot has to go right. Like a lot has to go their way. But man, I went off on that tangent earlier about how Clemson are frauds. They shouldn't be number 4. Who would I be to pick them to win then? All right. I'll ride. Let's go. I'm taking Notre Dame.
I love it. We're going to have a sweep here because I'm also taking Notre Dame. I'm going with the back-to-back upset pick here. I did not pick this 2 weeks in a row, Tom, so I don't think that gives us the extra juice, the power on Notre Dame's side. But I will say in my head, I had them slated as winning this game because, like Andy said, Clemson just seems like an absolute fraud. I don't know if I would slot in Klubnik for sure at this point, but I still don't think DJ is trustworthy. I mean, he's got the presence. He's, one of the more senior players on the team, but skill-wise, I don't think it's good enough at this point in time. I mean, he's certainly not as good as when they had Lawrence. So, I mean, yeah, they're coming off a bye week. He's had time to collect his thoughts and, do whatever he needs to do after that 0 touchdown, 2 interception performance. It was just god-awful. But I still don't think that's going to be good enough. Notre Dame in the ACC, they've won 26 consecutive games against ACC foes in the regular season. Yes, they've won some. They have lost some big playoff games against teams like Clemson. But as far as the regular season goes, 26 in a row, I think they keep on rolling. Their last ACC loss was 41-8 against Miami. That was all the way back in 2017. So it's been 5 years since they've lost to an ACC foe. One of the big players on Clemson just kind of shows, add to the pile the amount of things that Clemson doesn't have going right for them. Why I don't think they're a true contender. One of their starting safeties, Tyler Venables, son of the coach. He had a concussion from a moped collision only a few weeks ago. All right, suffered a concussion from doing something stupid, forced him out of the game. He didn't get to play last weekend, Halloween weekend. All right, kids, keep it together. You're ranked in the top 4 in the nation. You have playoffs on the line here. What does he do? Hits his head again on a car door while he was shopping for his Halloween costume. I mean, how stupid are some of these kids? They say he's still gonna, play. He'll be fine. I mean, might have a little bit of CTE going on in there after a double head knock, but it's just it's not even just Clemson. It's a lot of these teams that are typically in the top 5. They just seem so dysfunctional this year, and I don't know what's going on. Alabama, we've seen the same thing. I don't know if it's the NIL money getting to these players' heads, but yeah, Clemson is in my basket of teams that I just don't trust at this point. So I'm riding again with Notre Dame here to win this game, to pull off the upset. So, Tom, I'm sure you love to hear that one. And that will move us into the end of the show. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend. Week 10. Big games on the slot. Links are in the description. Like and subscribe if you can. We love it. Andy's and Tom's links also down in the description as well. Enjoy week 10, and we will see everybody next week.